This page is the striking front cover of 64 magazine, issue 51. The main focus is the first review of Paper Mario, highlighting it as a new dimension for the plumber in an RPG on the N64. There's also a big push for Conker's Bad Fur Day, teasing its mature themes as a change from Nintendo's usual output. The cover art features Mario himself and a bomb character, with systems like the GameCube, GB Advance, Nintendo 64, and Game Boy Color listed. Small screenshots show Paper Mario, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Rugrats in Paris, and Mega Man 64. Other games mentioned include titles from the Mario Advance series, Aiden Chronicles, Rayman, and Scooby-Doo. This page features a big competition section where readers could call in to win various prizes, including a Nintendo 64 console bundle complete with 3 top games. There's also an editorial from Roy Kimber explaining the magazine's evolution into a multi-format Nintendo title covering Game Boy Advance and GameCube alongside the trusty N64, while still promising continued support and reviews for N64 games, specifically highlighting the mouth-watering Paper Mario and a huge preview for Conker's Bad Fur Day, both of which we've just seen teased on the cover. Finally, there's a fun Meet the Team section showing the staff depicted as classic Mario characters. This page is the contents page, giving us a rundown of what's coming up in the issue. It highlights the big previews for Paper Mario and Conker's Bad Fur Day, which were much anticipated at the time, and lists other reviews and features like Mario Tennis, Mega Man 64, and a piece called But Is It Art? This page is the showcase, packed with news and rumors covering the N64, GBA, GBC, and GameCube. The big story here is Sega's shift, pulling out of hardware to focus on software, and the talk of them potentially working with Nintendo on future titles, with screenshots showing games like Phantasy Star Online. There's news about Infogrames getting the Peanuts license, leading to games like Snoopy Tennis on GBC. We also hear about the Game Nights coming to GameCube and the reasons behind the rumored delays for the GameCube launch. In the smaller tidbits, there are some interesting N64 rumors. It's mentioned that for Mario Kart on 64, you might only need one cartridge for 4-player link-up, which would be brilliant if true. There's also a rumor that Left Field Productions, who did the fantastic 1080 snowboarding, might be working on a sequel. Other bits cover Retro Studios changing focus for GameCube Metroid to be a first-person shooter, and GBC Zelda secrets unlockable with a GBA. The showcase reveals exciting news and updates. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 is confirmed for N64. Rare trademarks new game concepts. Nintendo's GBA will sport a purple design. The Game Boy Advance release date is advancing, and it boasts numerous launch titles. Hitmaker is confirmed to develop titles for the GameCube. The most wanted N64 games include Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, Magical Vacation, Secret of Mana Team, and Paper Mario. Metroid is transforming into a first-person shooter on GameCube, developed by Retro Studios. Daikata and VR Powerboat for N64 have been cancelled. Kenko, known for Top Gear on 64, is hiring for GameCube projects. The page also features charts and a competition. This page is the letters section of the magazine, where readers write in with their thoughts on games and the console. One letter asks about the upcoming GameCube and the return of the Game Watch section. Another reader questions details about the Legend of Zelda series and characters like Link. Other letters discuss specific N64 games like Carmageddon, praising titles like WWF, No Mercy, Perfect Dark, and the upcoming Sin and Punishment. There's also discussion on game quality and value, mentioning games like Zelda, Star Wars Racer, and Mission Impossible. A notable point raised is Sega halting production of the Dreamcast, confirming their shift to developing software for other platforms, including the PS2, Xbox, GBA, and GameCube, with Sonic potentially heading to the GameCube. The page features artwork of Link and Epona, characters from Perfect Dark and Carmageddon, and screenshots of winning N64 games, F-Zero X, Mario Tennis, Quake 2, and Vigilante 8. This page is the letters section featuring reader mail and responses from the magazine staff. One reader discusses the review scores for Jet Force Gemini compared to games like Perfect Dark and GoldenEye, expressing a strong preference for Jet Force Gemini and asking about the upcoming GameCube, referred to here as the Dolphin or GameCube, and the Game Boy Advance. Another letter asks about the availability of N64 games in shops, specifically mentioning Pokémon Stadium, Pokémon Snap, Perfect Dark, GoldenEye, and The World Is Not Enough. There's also a comment about old games still being enjoyable, referencing Diddy Kong Racing. The magazine responds to these points, explaining the score for Jet Force Gemini and their view on Carmageddon, and confirms the GameCube name while discussing the grubber's potential. The page also features artwork of Diddy Kong, and a large advertisement for a service called Cheats Unlimited offering game help and walkthroughs. This page features a look at some upcoming titles, primarily focusing on a big preview for Conker's Bad Fur Day on the N64. There's a contents list on the left showing pages for other games like Mario Advance and Mario Kart Advance, The Lion King, F-Zero Advance, Magical Vacation, Rayman, Scooby-Doo and Aiden Chronicles, covering both N64 and Game Boy Advance releases. The main event is the Conker's Bad Fur Day preview. It highlights the game as being out soon in the US, and describes it as a mature, adult-oriented platformer from Rare. Quite a departure from their earlier family-friendly titles like Banjo-Kazooie. Conker himself is presented as a squirrel with a fondness for drink, who finds himself in bizarre and often crude situations, stemming from a particularly bad hangover. The preview mentions encountering characters like the infamous Mighty Pooh and psychotic teddy bears. It goes into detail about one character, Carl the Cursing Cog, describing him as incredibly rude and sexist, showing screenshots of his foul-mouthed interactions with female cogs before they get their revenge. It notes the publisher is THQ and the developer is Rare, with a UK release targeted for April. Below the contents list on the left, there's also character art shown for Aiden Chronicles. This page continues the deep dive into Conker's Bad Fur Day, really driving home how different it is from Rare's earlier N64 titles like Banjo-Kazooie. They make it clear this isn't your average family-friendly fare, calling it more violent and having sicker humor than South Park or A Clockwork Orange. They're excited because they're fed up with sanitized gaming, even sarcastically suggesting playing Yoshi's Story for ages might make you violent. The preview highlights the game's twisted puzzles, like the Manure Moor, which involves getting a cow to drink prune juice with messy results, shown in a couple of screenshots. Another example features fiery creatures blocking the way. Conker handles this by downing an ice-cold beer and, well, relieving himself on them, which sounds absolutely crackers but is shown in a few images. Warrington the way. They also explain the context-sensitive B-button actions, crucial to gameplay, demonstrating it with Birdie the Scarecrow. Conker can use it to take aspirin to cure a hangover, showing a sequence of screenshots of this interaction. It's certainly a game that pushes boundaries, as one screenshot shows Conker wondering why everyone is so offensive. Down at the bottom you've got a picture of the Game Boy Advance, which is another story entirely. This preview of Conker's Bad Fur Day delves into its mature and subversive content. It highlights Conker's interactions with Greg the Grim Reaper, showcasing the squirrel's multiple lives. The preview also emphasizes Rare's audacious humor, detailing Conker's destruction of the Nintendo logo with a chainsaw, replacing it with the Rare logo. The article mentions Berry, Conker's girlfriend, and explores how Conker's drinking contributes to his troubles. Conker's transformation into a foul-mouthed, greedy and drunken squirrel is examined, with these traits portrayed as essential for his survival. The preview doesn't shy away from the game's controversial elements, describing the Great Mighty Pooh boss fight. It also touches on other enemies and notes the game's import status and eventual UK release. Images of the GameCube console are included. This page continues the preview for Conker's Bad Fur Day, focusing on the assortment of unique characters encountered within the game world. The main image features Conker himself, kitted out in military gear with a firearm, and smoking a cigar, setting the tone for his transformation. The page introduces several denizens of this world, such as the gas-troubled Fat Rat Splat, the troublesome Wayne the Bee Leader, the missing Mr. King Bee, and various gangs like the Dung Beetles Tizza, Baza, Noza and Jiza, and the Catfish Wilma, Doris and the Brute. It also covers the split-personality Cog Carl/Quentin, the militaristic Teddies, the Grim Reaper Death, and the ancient Panther King. Screenshots illustrate some of these characters and bizarre situations, including the explosive end of Fat Rat and a bug creature. The preview highlights the eccentric and often violent nature of the characters Conker interacts with on his journey. This page covers some exciting new titles arriving on the Game Boy Advance. First up is Mario Advance, bringing the classic gameplay of Super Mario Bros. 2 and All-Stars to the handheld. You can play as Mario, Luigi, Peach, or Toad, tackling brand new levels and enjoying a 4-player battle mode. It looks like a proper return to form for Mario on the go. Warrington Mailvire. Then there's Mario Kart Advance, which looks to recapture the magic of the SNES original with that fantastic sprite scaling effect. The 4-player link-up mode is highlighted, promising those classic all-night deathmatches. Some tracks look familiar from the N64 version, and the character roster includes familiar faces like Mario, Yoshi, and Toad. Finally, There's The Lion King, Simba's Mighty Adventure. This one's already out and covers the story of both Lion King films. You play as Simba, from cub to adult, in a platforming adventure, with segments involving stampedes and dangerous wildlife. Key characters like Scar and Timon and Pumbaa make appearances. It looks like a solid movie adaptation for the new handheld. This page carries on the look at upcoming Game Boy Advance titles. First up is Full Zero Advance, bringing that classic futuristic racing back. It looks to be much like the SNES original, focusing on solid gameplay and featuring new tracks and hovercars. The screenshots certainly capture the feel of the earlier game. Next, we see Magical Vacation. This one looks like a proper role-playing game, and the visuals immediately bring to mind Secret of Mana, which is no surprise given it's from Brownie Brown, a team spun off from Squaresoft. The graphics are apparently on par with or even better than Secret of Mana, and it sounds like you play as kids with magical powers. Finally, Rayman makes an appearance on the GBA. This version is based on the original game, bringing his unique brand of 2D platforming to the handheld. The screenshots show Rayman doing his thing, and it promises over 30 levels of action as he tries to rescue his friends from Mr. Dark. It looks like a solid conversion of the first game. This page is primarily taken up by adverts, with GameStation promoting their services for buying, selling and trading games, including N64 titles, alongside an ad for Inspector Cheats offering game cheats. There's also a preview for the Scooby-Doo classic Creep Capers game, which came out on Game Boy Color, but the text does mention the character's debut on the N64. This page gives us a good look at Aiden Chronicles, The First Mage, a proper fantasy role-playing game coming to the N64. It sets the scene for a grand adventure, following the tale of Alaron, a young squire who gets poisoned and must embark on a quest for a cure, which naturally leads to saving the realm. It looks like a traditional RPG experience, full of chatting to folks, exploring various lands like forests, snowy areas and deserts, and getting into fights with all sorts of creatures you encounter. The preview highlights the claim of a fully 3D world with no loading screens, which was quite the feat if they pulled it off. There are plenty of screenshots showing different characters and environments, really giving a sense of the scale and variety of the world you'll be adventuring through. It was published by Atlus and developed by THQ, and it definitely did arrive on the N64 for us to sink our teeth into back in the day. This page covers the first ever Game Boy Color Photographic Awards. Nintendo challenged photography students across Britain to create images reflecting the aura of the different Game Boy Color shades. It details the award ceremony held in London, where the winners were announced. There was a panel of judges, and prizes included cash and a Game Boy Color itself. The feature highlights the top 3 entries. First place went to Paul Abbott for a photo taken in a car park loading bay, incorporating hands and a cracked windscreen, aiming for atmosphere and humor. Second prize was awarded to Thomas Butler for a cheeky photo of himself already holding the award, described as wanting to make people smile. The third place winner was Daniel Moulding, who photographed a naked man playing the Game Boy Color in a bright yellow waiting room, calling it inspirational. It shows that Nintendo was looking for creative and unique takes on what the Game Boy Color represented. The next page continues the feature on the Game Boy Color Photographic Awards, showing photos from the exhibition event itself with people looking at the displayed work. It also highlights some rather unique artistic creations inspired by the Game Boy Color beyond just photography, specifically some wild platform shoes designed by Helen Red Richards. These boots are quite something, incorporating Game Boy Color consoles and even a little Pikachu figure into their design, proving they definitely aren't made for everyday walking. The text also touches on the journey to the event and the atmosphere once everyone arrived. The next page dives deeper into the gallery, showcasing the actual photographs that made it into the final exhibition from the Game Boy Color Photographic Awards. It's quite something to see how folks interpreted the brief. There are 10 images featured here, each with a brief description from the artist explaining their concept. You see everything from abstract takes involving infernos and devil horns, representing the fiery zeal of the Cerise Game Boy Color, to more narrative pieces like puppets trying to steal the console in a spy thriller scene, featuring characters called Brightness and Madness. One chap even dressed up as Van Gogh, painting outdoors with his yellow Game Boy, drawing inspiration from the artist's style. Another photo shows a butterfly resting on the console in nature, posing questions about its place. There's also a striking image of robotic hands holding the clear purple Game Boy, symbolizing efficiency and cynicism. Other shots include a party scene interpreting passion and lust, a man reflecting on the console in a forest setting, a close-up focused purely on the console itself like a coffee time scene, and a woman with a cigarette exploring the theme of lust symbolically. It's a diverse collection, really showing the different ways people approached the brief and the Game Boy Color as a subject for artistic expression. It certainly goes beyond just snapping a picture of the console. These are proper concepts brought to life. This page lays out how the magazine handles its reviews, acting as a guide for readers. It features a striking image of Paper Mario and a bomb, hinting at a review or coverage of that cracking title. It explains the various information boxes used in the reviews, like Ninfo for basic game details, the $64,000 question for pros and cons, PAL performance covering regional differences, memory options for saving, and supplied by listing import sources. There's also a section dedicated to understanding the controls using the N64 pad, helping players get a handle on things. The page details the magazine's unique rating system, first showing a 5-tier scale using Nintendo controller icons for graphics, audio, gameplay, and challenge. It then explains the final percentage overall score, correlating score ranges to descriptions from coveted gold medal award for 95% plus down to world of crap for low scores. Categories like soundbite offer a quick takeaway. Finally, it lists several other games reviewed, including titles like Return of the Ninja, Mario Tennis, Mega Man 64, Harvest Moon 2, Legend of the River King 2, Rugrats in Paris, Aliens, Thanatos Encounter, Player Manager 2001, and Croc 2, showing the magazine covers games across other platforms like Game Boy and PlayStation as well. This review examines Paper Mario, a surprise hit RPG on the N64. The game's unique 2D paper-like aesthetic and turn-based combat initially raised eyebrows, but the game proved to be a success. The story involves Mario rescuing Princess Peach and retrieving the Star Rod from Bowser. The review highlights the game's strengths: beautiful graphics, numerous activities, diverse companions, engaging combat, and humorous writing. It notes that while platforming elements exist, the gameplay leans more towards RPG exploration. Essential details are provided, including it being a platform RPG, developed and published by Nintendo, released as an import at the time. The review concludes by emphasizing the game's must-have status for N64 fans before its PAL release, with a sidebar detailing the importance of the Star Spirits. This page continues the deep dive into Paper Mario. It highlights various aspects of the game, starting with some of the quirky humor and references, like the mention of movie nods, and the flower creature doing a taxi driver impression. There's a look at some of the combat mechanics, including the sleepy sheep attack which knocks enemies out, with screenshots showing the effect in the desert. It also details the encounter with what appears to be Bowser in the Koopa Brothers castle, noting the resemblance to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and revealing it's not the real Bowser. Screenshots capture the fight sequence. The page also covers useful locations like the Toad Hall, which serves as a free place to rest and restore energy, perfectly shown in the screenshots. Finally, it explores a specific area, the dry desert oasis, showing how interacting with a special block can lead to upgrading a companion, specifically Bombiette gaining the power bomb attack capability, illustrated through a series of screenshots. The discussion touches on the game's attributes like HP, FP, and BP, and how badges can influence abilities. Paper Mario's review details its engaging gameplay, starting with companion-based puzzle solving. Koopa, for example, uses his shell to activate switches. The game incorporates a quirky quiz show feature offering rewards. Combat features an action command system, enhancing battles beyond standard turn-based RPG style. The game's structure, though linear, is extensive, offering hidden content. The graphics are praised for their paper-like aesthetic, creating a unique storybook feel. The audio blends modern and retro styles effectively. With a challenge difficulty rating, the game earns an impressive overall score of 95%. Additional praise highlights the game's fun RPG elements and the marvelous marriage of platform and RPG elements. This page features a review of Return of the Ninja on the Game Boy Color. It's described as a hack-and-slash beat-em-up, with the action coming thick and fast. The game involves progressing through levels, using melee combat against enemies. The graphics are noted as crisp, if a bit murky in places, and the sound is adequate. It's seen as a refreshing take on the beat-em-up genre for the system. The review mentions the game can be tough, but rewarding for players who stick with it. Screenshots show side-scrolling gameplay, with the ninja character fighting enemies in various environments, including rooftops and courtyards with large statues. The game earns a respectable overall score of 84%. This page reviews Mario Tennis on the Game Boy Color, following on from the previous page's GBC review. It builds upon the basic concept of early tennis games but adds a whole lot more, including doubles matches, tournaments, and a load of minigames. The big draw here is the RPG element, where you enroll in the Royal Tennis Academy, train, and compete in a sort of Zelda-style progression to climb the ranks. This structure really adds longevity and depth to the game. It's noted for having better graphics than earlier Game Boy titles, and being incredibly easy to pick up but seriously addictive. The roster is decent too, with characters like Baby Mario, Luigi, and Donkey Kong, each having different traits and even their own unique minigames, like guiding DK to hit bananas. The game received a gold medal award from the magazine, which tells you how well regarded it was. Key points highlighted are its fantastic gameplay, the abundance of fun minigames, the great RPG element, and the strong recommendation that every GBC owner should really have it. Camelot developed it, and Nintendo published it as you'd expect. This page continues the review of Mario Tennis on the Game Boy Color, expanding on the great foundations discussed on the previous page. It confirms the RPG element is compelling, and the graphics are gorgeous for the system with spot-on character animation. Rallies can become intense, leading to those you cannot be serious moments. The screenshots illustrate the gameplay nicely, featuring characters like Baby Mario and showing different perspectives. The game gets high praise, summed up by the quote, "If you don't buy this game, everyone will laugh at you," and the description, "Zelda with balls," highlighting its addictive nature and quest-like structure. The game is recommended as a must-buy. The page details the ratings across graphics, audio, gameplay, and challenge, leading to an impressive overall score of 96%. The soundbite calls it an absolutely outstanding game that's set and matched to Mario. A second opinion reinforces the positive view, describing it as totally easy to pick up and play and utterly addictive, hailing it as the perfect Game Boy game. There's also a section explaining the basic controls, a list of alternative games, and various advertisements, including one for ringtones and graphics, a big Pokémon sale, and an ad for Co-Games, selling games and accessories for multiple systems including Game Boy and PlayStation. This page features the review of Mega Man 64. Mega Man is a massive character, a real icon, especially loved by Nintendo fans for his classic platformers, so there were high hopes for his N64 debut. However, this game completely changed the formula, being a 3D third-person RPG rather than the traditional action platformer everyone expected. The review is brutally honest about this shift, even featuring a quote advising to avoid the game like a man-sized pile of cow dung. The screenshots show the game's visuals, and the captions poke fun at the dialogue. The $64,000 question section highlights many negatives, including frustrating levels, graphics that look basic, and the game feeling unfinished. There's also a look back at classic 2D Mega Man games to highlight the departure. The Nympho confirms it's a single-player import title that supported the Rumble Pack and cost a princely sum. It seems the change in genre just didn't pay off for this one. This page continues the deep dive into Mega Man 64, picking up on the review's assessment of this significant departure for the Blue Bomber. It highlights graphical aspects, noting some unusual points like textures not always appearing correctly, and animation quirks, as seen in the various screenshots dotted across the page. The review delves into the game's structure, describing how Mega Man navigates a 3D world, engaging in tasks like exploring shopping areas and interacting with various characters to progress, which is a far cry from the series' traditional platforming roots. There's a strong sentiment captured in the quote, "If you're a true Mega Man freak, you'll be shocked and saddened to see this game in action," summarizing the feeling of many longtime fans towards the genre shift. While largely critical of the core gameplay loop and the move away from action, the review does concede that elements like the cutscenes offer some enjoyment. Ultimately, the page reinforces that this N64 title, released only in Japan as an import, didn't live up to expectations, feeling more like a megaflop due to its ill-conceived design rather than a triumphant next step for the franchise. This page continues the review of Mega Man 64, giving a deeper look at the game's mechanics and overall assessment. There's a piece highlighting the slightly daft ability to jump onto vehicles, humorously dubbed Joyriders, which is apparently fraught with peril. The review also touches on Mega Man's somewhat unexpected acrobatic dodging skills in He's the Greatest Dancer. We see a breakdown of the N64 controls for the game, showing how movement and actions are mapped to the pad. There's also a second opinion offering a different perspective but echoing similar sentiments about the game's feel. Finally, the review delivers its verdict with individual ratings for graphics, audio, gameplay, and challenge, culminating in an overall score of 58%. It reinforces the point from the previous page that this Japanese N64 port, known as Mega Man Legends in other territories, might not be what longtime fans were hoping for. This page dives into the world of farming, reviewing Harvest Moon 2 for the Game Boy Color. The review muses on the unusual premise for a game managing a farm to save it from development. It highlights that Harvest Moon 2 stands out from typical Game Boy titles by relying on a solid concept and challenging objectives, rather than just action or platforms. Running the farm involves planting, selling, and raising livestock, and the reviewer points out it requires significant patience and perseverance, rewarding players accordingly. The page shows several screenshots of the game, illustrating the top-down view of the farm and interior scenes, with character interactions. There's also an information box detailing features like link cable support and stating it's a farming simulation developed by Natsume. A separate box lists pros and cons, noting it offers a whole world of farming fun, is bright and colorful, but doesn't offer much help getting started and isn't action-packed. Harvest Moon 2 was indeed released on the Game Boy Color in 2000 in Japan and later in other regions, proving the concept was appealing enough. This page reviews two Game Boy Color titles, Harvest Moon 2 and Legend of the River King 2. Harvest Moon 2, though initially lacking guidance and financially challenging, is ultimately rewarding with an 82% score. A key feature is its trading places system, allowing item swaps with Legend of the River King 2. Legend of the River King 2, a fishing RPG, receives a 70% score. The review finds its core gameplay, centered around fishing and errands, somewhat tedious compared to other RPGs, despite its humorous elements. A second opinion echoes this sentiment, suggesting it may not be worth playing unless you're already a fan of the series. Both reviews include screenshots of the game environments and characters. Eka. This page covers the Rugrats in Paris game review for the N64. The artwork shows the Rugrats babies, including Tommy Pickles, Chucky Finster, Phil and Lil DeVille, Angelica Pickles, and Susie Carmichael, posing around the Eiffel Tower while holding a French flag. The review highlights that Paris is facing a real baby boom, and the game is based on the movie. It's a party/puzzle game, where the aim is to roam Euro-Reptiland collecting tickets to buy the exclusive Reptar helmet, to take on RoboSnail and save Paris. The review mentions a multiplayer option for minigames, but notes players compete one at a time. Screenshots show various in-game environments, including a marketplace, a pagoda, and the Eiffel Tower area. It notes that the game is considered a vast improvement over its predecessor. The next page continues the Rugrats in Paris review. It goes into more detail about the game's structure and challenges. You can play as several main Rugrats characters, including Kimmy from the movie. The gameplay revolves around collecting red tickets, which are the currency in Euro-Reptiland, using them to buy items that can be traded for golden tickets. These golden tickets unlock new games and items needed to reach the final confrontation. The game is divided into phases: ticket hunting, mini-games, and the final boss battle. The straight-down-the-middle minigolf is highlighted as a fun part, rewarding skilled players with a golden ticket. However, some minigames require high accuracy and reflexes, and failure can be frustrating as you have to restart. The review gives hints for the final Monster Mash battle against RoboSnail, noting Reptar's controls are a bit loose compared to RoboSnail's speed. Overall, the game is deemed fun yet forgettable, with difficulty spikes in certain areas, but an accessible structure thanks to multiple ways to earn golden tickets. It was released on the Nintendo 64. This N64 review of Rugrats in Paris explores its gameplay. The game features ticket collection, jigsaw puzzles, and a slow-moving environment. It highlights various minigames like bumper cars, mini-golf, and fly swatting, with For the Chop, starring Chucky as a kung fu hero. The review praises the improved graphics, making characters resemble their TV counterparts, though environments are basic. However, the audio is deemed less impressive, with repetitive music. Overall, the game is described as a varied, though loosely connected, collection of challenges, resulting in a fun yet forgettable experience. The final score is 80%, with emphasis on fun minigames, despite some frustration. This page reviews Rugrats in Paris, but this time for the Game Boy Color. It mentions that like the N64 version, the game features the Rugrats going to Euroreptiland in Paris. The plot involves finding a princess, which is described as twee. Gameplay involves navigating a park map with a cursor to access minigames, which are necessary to unlock platforming sections. The review highlights minigames like map mice, whacking moles, and states they are simple, but surprisingly addictive. The platform sections are described as standard find the switches side-scrollers, while another part is a flying game where you pilot a plane. Graphically, it's noted that the Rugrats characters are instantly recognizable, and the sound is reasonable for a Game Boy Color title. Overall, the minigames are seen as the main strength, while the rest of the game is less inspiring, but still offers some enjoyment, especially for fans of the show and movies. There's also a second opinion that echoes these points, calling the minigames fun and addictive but the rest less inspiring. The game is given an overall score of 73%. Alternatives listed are Inspector Gadget and Merlin. This page is reviewing Aliens, Thanatos Encounter, which is a Game Boy Color title that puts you in the boots of a Marine responding to a distress call. The goal is to navigate a spaceship filled with acid-spitting xenomorphs, hunt down the aliens, rescue survivors, and eventually face the alien queen. The gameplay is viewed from a top-down perspective, exploring maze-like metal corridors. You search every area to eradicate the threat and find power-ups and weapons to help complete your task. You start with a team of Marines, and if one falls, you move on to the next. The review highlights plenty of action and a good selection of guns. The graphics look great for the system, capturing the feel of the Aliens universe with plenty of detail. However, it notes the shooting element doesn't feel quite right initially and criticizes the password system as being too long and a major flaw, suggesting a save system would have been better. Despite the shortcomings, the game is described as a very entertaining action-adventure, with more strategy and action than expected. It might not sustain interest forever, but it's worth checking out for the time you do play it. The game gets an overall score of 85%. There's also a second opinion agreeing that the shooting detracts, but praising the visuals. This page looks at a couple of Game Boy Color titles. First up is Player Manager 2001, which aims to bring football management to the handheld. It's noted as a simplified sim, focusing on just getting stuck in and playing rather than delving too deep into the stats like you would on a PC. There are screenshots showing the tactical diagrams, language selection, and player stats. The main review points out the lack of real player names and the small text on screen, but finds it quite addictive. Roy Kimber in the second opinion agrees it's a decent effort but would stick with O'Leary Manager 2000. It scores an overall 83%. Next is Croc 2, the follow-up to the platformer. Interestingly, this version changes the perspective from CDN to a more top-down view, drawing comparisons to Zelda. The review highlights that it's improved visually and is easier to play because of the new style. Croc is on a quest to find his mother, which involves tasks and puzzles, though the review criticizes these as sometimes feeling aimless. The biggest gripe is the password system, which demands you jot down long codes, not ideal for a portable machine. Alex Jones, who liked the original Croc, found this one decent fun, despite being standard stuff. Croc 2 gets an overall score of 85%. This page is the Score Zone, where the magazine features the top scores sent in by players across the country and beyond. It's showcasing readers' achievements in some absolute classics. You've got Perfect Dark, Diddy Kong Racing, GoldenEye, The Legend of Zelda, and even Shadows of the Empire in there, amongst others. They're putting out the call for more scores too, so anyone who thinks they've got a record-breaking time or score needs to get their proof sent in to get their name in print. This page carries on with the Score Zone, showcasing readers' top times and scores submitted for various N64 titles. You've got some serious competition here in games like Star Wars, Episode 1 Racer, and the classic Mario Kart 64, Micro Machines, the excellent Star Wars, Rogue Squadron, Quake 64, Banjo-Kazooie, and Monster Truck Madness 64 are also featured, highlighting the dedication some players put into getting those record-breaking runs. They're still running the Score Zone Challenge, calling for anyone who thinks they're the best to send in their proof to be in, with a chance of being crowned the ultimate player for the month, and winning a prize. There's also a mention of the 64 Solutions Cheats hotline service, available for those needing tips or codes. This page features an extensive A to Z guide packed with hints, tips, and cheats for a massive number of Nintendo 64 games. It's presented as a comprehensive, updated list of ways to get ahead or just mess about in loads of N64 titles. You've got passwords, button inputs for cheats, unlocks for characters and levels, and all sorts of useful information. The page is visually dominated by a colorful collage of characters from many classic N64 games, including the likes of Donkey Kong and Diddy, Banjo and Kazooie, characters from Toy Story 2 like Buzz Lightyear and the Alien, South Park Boys, James Bond from GoldenEye, and figures from games like Body Harvest, Battle Tanks, and Exotica. It really highlights the huge variety of games the N64 had to offer, providing shortcuts and secrets for everything from racing games like Diddy Kong Racing to action titles and platformers. It's essentially the magazine's print version of a cheat database, building on things like their earlier cheat hotline mentioned on the previous page. The next page is a massive cheat section, aptly titled Cheat Central. It's absolutely packed with hints, tips, passwords, and button inputs for unlocking all sorts of secrets in countless N64 games. You've got codes for invincibility, extra weapons, hidden characters, level selects, you name it, there's probably a cheat here for it. Visually, it's dominated by a huge collage of characters pulled from a load of classic N64 titles, showing off the sheer variety the console had. You can spot everyone from Donkey Kong and Buzz Lightyear to Duke Nukem, the South Park Lads, James Bond from GoldenEye, and various fighters from games like Mace, The Dark Age. It's basically the magazine's comprehensive guide to getting an edge, or just having a laugh with cheats, building on their previous cheat hotline service. The next page is indeed the core of the Cheat Central section, expanding on the tease from the previous one. It's absolutely crammed with ways to break or enhance your favorite N64 games. There's a huge visual splash featuring a fantastic collage of characters from countless N64 titles. You've got the gang from South Park, Donkey Kong, Buzz Lightyear, James Bond from GoldenEye, Duke Nukem, and fighters from Mortal Kombat 4, and others all thrown together. The cheats themselves cover a massive range, from unlocking hidden characters and stages in games like San Francisco Rush, Mario Golf, and Mischief Makers, to gaining infinite weapons and invincibility in Mission Impossible. You'll find codes for unlocking characters in NFL Blitz 2001, boosting stats in Off-Road Challenge, and earning medals and badges in Perfect Dark and Pokémon Puzzle League. There are also various gameplay modifiers for titles like Micro Machines V3 and Mickey Speedway USA. It's a comprehensive guide designed to give players an edge or just reveal some fun secrets they might have missed. This page continues the glorious Cheat Central showcase, expanding the massive collage of characters from all over the N64 universe. You've got the likes of South Park Boys, Buzz Lightyear, Donkey Kong, Duke Nukem, and loads more thrown together in a bonkers visual mix, really driving home the sheer variety on the system. The main focus here is delivering the goods cheat codes for a whole raft of N64 titles. You'll find ways to unlock characters and modes in games like Rampage, Universal Tour, and Ready 2 Rumble Boxing. Round 2, along with cheats for classics such as Resident Evil 2, Revolt, and Road Rash 64, giving you everything from invincibility to hidden cars. It's a proper treasure trove for anyone looking to mess about with their favorite games. This page carries on the fantastic Cheat Central from the last, building on the massive character collage with icons like the South Park Lads, Duke Nukem, Buzz Lightyear, and Donkey Kong all jumbled together, plus a few small shots of the racing action. It's absolutely packed with more cheat codes for a wide variety of N64 games. You'll find everything from unlocks and special modes for the Extreme G Racers, 1080 degrees snowboarding, and Snowboard Kids, to character codes and general cheats for the South Park games and Space Station, Silicon Valley. There are also codes covering unlocks, abilities, and special features for Spider-Man and the Star Wars titles like Rogue Squadron and Racer, plus hints for Shadowgate 64. It's a proper goldmine for anyone wanting to spice up their gameplay on these classics. This page continues the brilliant Cheat Central section, adding a wealth of codes and tips for even more N64 classics. The fantastic character collage from the previous page gets even busier, packing in icons like the South Park Lads, Duke Nukem, and more alongside screenshots showing off games like Vrally and Turok 3. It's absolutely stuffed with cheats for Super Smash Bros., the new Tetris, Tetrisphere, The World Is Not Enough, Superman, Tarzan, the Top Gear titles, Twisted Edge, Turok 2 and 3, Vrally Vigilante 8, WWF No Mercy, and Zelda Majora's Mask, offering everything from level unlocks and special modes to character skins and in-game advantages. A real treasure trove for anyone looking to mess around or get an edge in these great games. This page is dedicated to special offers from 64 Magazine, featuring discounted strategy guides for N64 classics like Turok 2, Zelda 64, Banjo-Kazooie, and Lilac Wars, alongside subscription deals offering free issues, a free solutions book, and even a free game from a selection including Mario Party 2, Mario Kart, Mario Tennis, Mickey Speedway USA, and Perfect Dark. Donkey Kong and Mario are front and center promoting the deals. This page presents the magazine's comprehensive guide known as the Nindex, detailing every Nintendo 64 game they've reviewed, complete with essential information like player count, peripheral compatibility for things like the controller pack, rumble pack, and expansion pack, and of course, the review score and a brief comment. There's a handy key explaining all the symbols used, and a clear breakdown of the different game genres. It also features the Our Top 10 list, showcasing the highest scoring games at the time with screenshots from absolute classics like Banjo-Tooie, Perfect Dark, GoldenEye, and games featuring Link from the Zelda series. The page is brought to life, with some superb artwork, depicting Link and other memorable characters and imagery from the N64 universe. This page continues the Nindex, listing many more Nintendo 64 games with their scores and comments, building on the comprehensive guide from the previous page. It highlights the top games in several key genres. You've got the 64 top shoot-'em-ups featuring classics like Perfect Dark and GoldenEye, showing off a scene from the highly rated Perfect Dark. Then there's the 64 top adventure games, listing monumental titles like the Zelda games and Resident Evil 2, complete with a familiar screenshot of Link. The 64 top fighting games includes fan favorites, such as the WWF titles and Super Smash Bros., showing the unique Tom and Jerry game entry. Next up is the 64 top platform games, highlighting absolute must-plays like Banjo-Tooie, Rayman 2 and Donkey Kong 64, featuring a shot of Banjo himself. Finally, the 64 top 4-player games section points out the best titles for multiplayer fun, including Perfect Dark, GoldenEye, and WWF No Mercy, with a screenshot showcasing some intense 4-player action. This page continues the Nindex, giving you the lowdown on even more Nintendo 64 games with their ratings and reviews, just like the previous one. It highlights the best in the driving genre with the 64 top racing games, featuring titles like F1 World Grand Prix, and the brilliant Ridge Racer 64, and shows a shot of the Formula 1 racing action. Then there's the 64 top party/puzzle games, listing cracking multiplayer and brain-teasing fun like Bust-A-Move and Pokemon Puzzle League, with a colorful screenshot from a party game. For the deeper thinkers, the 64 top strategy/simulation games covers games like StarCraft 64 and Premier Manager 64, showing a tactical overhead view from a strategy title. Finally, it wraps up with the 64 top bad games, pointing out some real stinkers like Power Rangers and Carmageddon, illustrating the point with a screenshot of a less than stellar moment. The main Nindex list carries on down the page, running through loads more games from A to Y, covering all sorts of different styles and scores, giving you a complete picture of the N64 library. This page carries on with the Nindex, but this time giving us a look at the Game Boy Color titles. It lists a load of games like Air Force Delta, Aladdin, and Daikatana for the handheld, showing their scores and a brief comment on each one. The main part of the page, though, is all about catching up on missed issues. It's a big advert for the back issues of 64 magazine. You can see a stack of covers from previous issues, showing off some classic games and features like Zelda, Majora's Mask, Banjo-Tooie, Spider-Man, and Indiana Jones. It even details what's in a specific issue, like issue 50, which covered Indiana Jones, Star Wars Episode 1, and Scooby-Doo, plus features on the GameCube and their 50th birthday. It's essentially an order form, where you can tick off the issues you need to complete your collection, fill in your details, and pay to get them sent out. There's also a number to call, if you prefer to order over the phone. This page is all about Rare's highly anticipated game, Conker's Bad Fur Day. It's featured prominently with screenshots showing Conker, and promises full coverage of news, previews, cheats, tips and gossip for what's touted as Rare's potentially greatest title. It confirms the game is set for release on April 26th.